Just 20 years ago, few travelers had actually heard of Belize, a small Central American nation with a barrier reef, rainforests, and indigenous communities. Then came the transformation. Marriott, Hyatt, a luxury real estate boom, more recently, over-the-water bungalows in a marine reserve, and multiple cruise port projects. Belize is changing fast. Who's driving this transformation, and ultimately, who is it benefiting long-term? Belize's image still sells. Barefoot luxury, reef conservation, community-based tourism. It lands Belize on Forbes retiree lists and travel magazines as an ecotourism model. But on the ground, the numbers and the development footprint tell a different story.
If we're so proud of this spot that we call Belize and that we get to reside and steward these incredible resources, then why are we trying to look like Bali with overwater structures? Or why are we trying to look like Key Biscayne?
Janelle Chanona, Vice President of Oceana Belize, a journalist turned environmental advocate who also serves as an independent senator in Belize. In 2017, Chanona rallied Belizeans around the country to stop offshore oil drilling and won.
We pretty bad. Yeah. Nobody else in the world have that. The second longest barrier reef in the world.
When I told her that I felt Belize was at a crossroads, Chanona said to me that it was much more than that.
It's an identity crisis, maybe packaged in trying to have multiple identities simultaneously.
On the one side, a ban on offshore oil drilling, coral protection, a conservation leader brand. And on the other, investors carving up coastlines, dredging near seagrass beds, removing mangroves, building villas where fishermen once cast their nets.
We're still not clear what is our path? What is the plan? Because multiple plans seem to be happening at the same time, and letting market forces decide has never really been great for the people and places involved.
So you would say that it's tourism that's driving this?
Well, and this is it. Well, who's driving? Is it investors coming in and, them determining like what's great for Belize? Is it Belizeans behind the wheel? I think right now there's kind of like a fight for the steering wheel because, you see where there are these plans, and sometimes we find out about it after the fact coming in, and then the people having to step in and say, but wait, no, you can't go there. That's my fishing flat or place that's important to me as a Belizean. 60% of our everyday depend on the integrity of coastal and marine ecosystems. Places like San Pedro, like Plaza Insula, like Hopkins, like Punta Gorda, there's an immediate connection that if I can't go to Wilbur Flats to make my living, how am I going to live? If I can't fish in this area, how am I going to live?
This is the same coastline that provides for families, for hotels, tours also centered around the barrier reef. I remember when even Belize hotel scene was proudly homegrown. Family-run jungle lodges, small beach inns.
I'm with you that the charm of the mom and pop was our selling point, and it was, come be a part of our family and sit at our table, and as opposed to hundreds of room location where you could be anywhere because the whole design is to keep you on property and isolated and from airport to airport, and then you're gone.
Then came the big flags. In 2017, Mahogany Bay Village opened on Ambergris Caye. It was the country's largest resort at the time, with an anticipated 300 rooms, the first Hilton in Belize too. And it drew dozens of travel publications to San Pedro and to Belize. Then came Marriott's Alaya Belize in 2021. Hyatt is now set to launch this year in 2025. Belize's tourism boom is a story of exponential growth. The sector is estimated to have generated around $1.4 billion in 2024, fueling roughly 40% or more of Belize's gross domestic product. Tourism arrivals have jumped more than 100% since 2010. That's more growth than anywhere else in the Caribbean. But growth for whom?
If we're so proud of this spot that we call Belize and that we get to reside and steward these incredible resources, then why are we trying to look like Bali with overwater structures? Or why are we trying to look like Key Biscayne?
To understand what's at stake, let's look at Cayo Rosario, a speck of land off of Ambergris Caye, less than 5 acres inside the Ho-Chan Marine Reserve. Cayo Rosario is not an empty sandbar. It has shallow flats and seagrass beds that are nurseries for bonefish, permit, and tarpon, the same species that power Belize's world-class fly fishing industry. Now, it's set to become a Six Senses resort. with overwater cabanas.
Cayo Rosario sits in the conservation zone of this marine protected area, which sounds a little bit contradictory, but it's like super special within the marine protected zone. Within that zone, there's land that's private that's been trading hands, and now with a group of investors who want to set up a resort with overwater structures.
Developers promise that it'll be carbon neutral, it will have solar power, wastewater treatment, reef monitoring. They also point out that the land was purchased before it became part of the reserve. For Chanona, the concern is the precedent that this sets.
That's an immediate confrontation between the residents and the investors, because overwater structure means over flats typically, and flats support a special type of fishing that the residents depend on. While you can say, oh, it's just an overwater structure, it'll look great, people will love having that, ambience and that look, it immediately compromises livelihoods that for generations, San Pedranos have proudly honed their skill for this type of fishing, for getting the lures and getting well paid to get certain species of fish. And I think to pass that down, it's the perpetual cry. We're not telling you not to develop, but let's talk about how you develop so that you don't undermine my way of life, my peace, and what I want to pass on.
I presume that when those structures are there, San Pedranos will not be able to go and just fish at will in these places. They're probably going to be private.
Yes. And it follows a track record of these developers saying, oh no, it'll be great. You'll never know we're here. And then the minute the facility is up, there's a guy with a shotgun at the end of the bridge saying, you can't be around here. Please move on. I know it's not unique to Belize. And I think perhaps that's the lesson. And maybe that's the shift that's created that people power of seeing the writing on the wall, seeing what's happened in other places and saying, yeah, no, we don't want to have to fight as islanders, as residents, people of the sea, to fight to get to the sea because everything is being sold out, everything has been blocked.
It's also decimating heritage, as you said.
All in the name of jobs.
In the name
of jobs, that's a magic word.
Who decides what's a valid job?
A fisherman told me plainly, he says, if we don't take care of our fisheries, when things done, they will pack up and go home. Where the fishermen, I get to go. I can't go into anybody else's waters and do what they're doing to ours.
For Chanona, the change in Belize's environment has indeed been insidious, the kind that you really don't notice until you zoom in. Mangrove loss, she says, is in the double digits in just 10 years.
I do worry that it's been so insidious that it's like until you stop and look at the Google Earth images from, let's say, 2010 to now, you realize the scale of it. We've had colleagues who mapped Placentia Peninsula, and just seeing the last 10, 11 years, the scale of deforestation of mangroves, the dredging to create land. At this rate, the peninsula is forever changed.
Those tangled roots are natural seawalls. They are hurricane buffers. They are nurseries for reef fish. And when they vanish, the land goes with them.
As a child visiting my uncle and his family in San Pedro and going places like Ochan, which is our first marine reserve, just seeing just a ton of fish and just being blown away by all this life and biomass of biodiversity. And then incrementally over the last couple of years of seeing less and less to the point where it's obvious. And just thinking, if this is so well run and this is got the structure around it, what does that say for other marine protected areas?
There's demand driving this as well, especially from foreigners, retirees. The housing pressures are visible. Prices have soared in tourism hubs. On Ambergris Key, it wouldn't be far-fetched for a 2-bedroom condo to cost upwards of $500,000. Beachfront villas can climb up to $2 million. On the Placentia Peninsula, villas now list for at least 4 times what they used to because of international demand. The ease of foreign ownership and the allure of the Caribbean lifestyle make it a primary target for buyers.
Increasingly, it's also been, if we lose this as Belizeans, then what do we have? Not just what do we pass on, but what do we have? Our reef, given our geographic makeup, is our first line of defense. Parts of our commercial capital is so vulnerable to climate crisis. That reef breaks up 95% of the wave action that comes in. That reef defends us. That reef is our barrier. But that reef needs Belizeans to defend her and to be a barrier to these bad ideas. Repeated situations have shown that if community residents, the tour guide, the tour operator, aren't involved in it, then you could see where a lot gets by because everybody's busy, right? Everybody's at work, everybody's at school, but also realizing, oh yeah, this consultation thing, we really need to define that because me showing up to a meeting to hear your idea is not you consulting me. It's you informing me. You holding a meeting is not a checkbox to say the community has been consulted.
Belize does have strong environmental laws on paper, but enforcement is another matter.
We have been praised as having some of the best laws. I mean, our laws are copied by other countries, but the implementation and the enforcement and the accountability of our decision-making processes is where we lose.
The environmental impact assessment process is supposed to filter out destructive projects.
The NGOs have a seat on the National Environmental Appraisal Committee, which is a big part of the EIA process. Where the push is now for reform is how do we filter? Right now, the system is you want to build a cruise port in your land in the conservation zone of a protected area. You pay your scientists, you pay whoever, prepare your plan, and you submit that. Right now, the plan just goes through. Yeah, we have consistently had really bad ideas go through a system because there's no way to stop them at the outset. And that's why if you look at the history of all the EIAs that have been approved, very few have been rejected. With one of those cruise ports, that was like a first. It triggered historically the first tribunal to assess the determination to not go through with that investment.
But Belizeans have won before. In 2017, they faced a bigger threat: offshore oil drilling. The entire reef system, including the blue hole, were at risk.
What triggered the campaign of looking at the BP oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico and saying, wow, like what if that happened here? And then finding out, oh wow, it could happen here. Without our awareness, the whole place, including our blue hole, our crown jewel, was already on the table. That was people power manifesting itself, and not just once. Every time the issue comes up, one of the pivotal moments of our oil campaign, the mayor at the time from San Pedro went on the boat with Oceana and saw firsthand what that meant. And then coming home and communicating Belizean to Belizean. So that experience of making sure that we're giving Belizeans the access to the information, take a position, take a stand, do something. And I think maybe that was one of the things with Cayo Rosario that, the benchmark of what's possible keeps slipping and keeps going off. And then suddenly we're at this precipice of what else? Like what could be the next thing? And then lo and behold,
and that is happening, right?
Else.
It is happening. That's really a turning point. If that's allowed, when's the next developer coming with over-the-water villa plans?
Yeah. As bad as it can be, it can get worse.
It's also 3 or 4 cruise ports underway.
They're multiple on the table and you're not really sure on any given day, like what's still live. But I think it's investment in the name of development and jobs, which is great. But what kind of jobs are we talking about? Who's going to get those jobs? How long will those jobs last? Again, looking at where we came from in terms of the charming, authentic destination, have proposals in from some of these developers who want to blow up part of the original channel to accommodate bigger boats because these super yachts and these super cruise ships need to come. Well, why? Can we have a conversation about what the cost benefit of that is? We know as a country, we depend on cargo and port, and Belize has a dramatic trade imbalance. We import a lot. But can we have a conversation about what the cost benefit is so that we make an informed decision? And it's not just because multiple ship developers and investors want to come in and create 3 ports in Belize City, one and further down along the coast in the Belize district, on top of the one offshore Placencia. How does Belize make 4 cruise ports work, even from a financial point of view, but also from an environmental point of view?
That sounds like a disaster. I'm sorry. I mean,
Well,
it's a small country like Belize and a reef that is the healthiest reef, right, in the world.
Certainly one of the best, but it's our only, like as Belizeans, it's our only reef. It's
only
all we get. But it's also that, okay, if our plan is, and collectively we've decided we're going to have these bigger boats come in, how do we put standards in place to say, you know what, in Europe, you can't go in without advanced water treatment systems, and you can't go in without these special air filters for air pollution, and you can't go in using this type of fuel. So how do we set standards to say, yeah, we need you, but you need us because you need a destination to come to. And if you want to go somewhere else because you don't want to change how you're working, great. I haven't seen anybody else contradict the original data that said very explicitly, we make the most money economically, financially, the nation from overnight tourism. But the good thing is that coming back to the crossroads of we still have time to make choices. If we keep going down one path, there are going to be things that we can't come back from and we have no choice on. But on certain things, we still have time. We can still make the choices that can work for us. We can still get where we need to go in terms of building ourselves and getting Belize in an economic path.
Especially lately, it seems to be a model that everyone is following in the Caribbean. Rush for luxury resorts and cruises, more, going against the climate crisis. So why are we doing things that are going completely against what scientists are telling us?
Well, I have a theory there. It's the disinformation and the misinformation and the gaslighting. And suddenly that media has been weaponized to the point where unless you're like in the thick of it, you're doubting that this can ever happen. Oh, you must get that wrong. I can't imagine, therefore it can't be true when the unimaginable is happening. We are at crisis. It is not climate change. It is climate crisis. Like it is so graphic in our nature that, and that's where I come to with the young people, right? Of, being able to, whether it's wrong truthing or fact checking with their peers from these other places or however they're doing it.
A lot of people fall for things because they're packaged so well, right? It's sort of marketing speak. The luxury brands, claim they have sustainability baked into their, operations, that they're giving back. I read a piece recently in the San Pedro Sun. Some of the investors of the 6 census being built in Cayo Rosario said that the overstructure resorts are carefully designed. They can even enhance marine ecosystems and provide nutrients, etc., and bring in species. They're going to give back 0.5% of their revenue annually to a sustainability fund.
I'm smirking here because I remember as part of a presentation, the consultant who was trying to tell us that offshore oil was a good idea said, and reefs will start growing on the rigs and people can enjoy the fishing from the rigs from aggregating spots. That's their job, right? To sell it however it is. I think there have been enough tough lessons learned in terms of where the sales pitch and the script does not reconcile with what actually happens on the ground.
The campaign that you mentioned against oil exploration that brought everybody together, that was your main focus there for a while. What would you say is your number one item now?
It's working against the jadedness and the apathy that some quarters are trying to push to say you can't have it all. You can't have the environment and you can't have development. So we got to pick, and we're always going to pick for jobs and we're always going to pick for development. So we're pushing for informed decision making. How can we make sure that Belizeans are included meaningfully throughout the process, that because we're all going to have to live with these decisions, we all have a role in the decision-making process, particularly to the youth, because they are the generation that are going to have to live with our decisions being made today the longest. I'm almost 50 years old. Like I'm on my these 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds, like we want them to be there and own the fact that they're not just the future, they're the present, and they have to make their presence felt. And they have to be at the table and they have to take a position to their credit. Every time I can engage Lily with young people, they have so much to say. They're asking for questions. They're thinking about stuff deeply. How do we make sure that going forward, the reason people come to Belize is here? The reason people want to retire here is here. The reason people feel so, this is not just anybody behind the front desk. This is a Belizean welcoming me. This is a Belizean taking me on my tour. This is a Belizean taxi driver being a Belizean taxi driver entertaining me. We have so much to offer everywhere we go, but not at these levels of just kind of like overwhelming the place. It's how do we actually define what sustainability means, and we preserve the way of life, but that we also benefit from it, because I want to see Belizeans benefit from their Belize. This is their inheritance. We are co-heirs to this amazing resource. I don't think you should have to sell your piece of the inheritance to see anything from the land your dad left you or the piece that your granny had in the family from day one. I want to see Belizeans as owners of their land, benefiting from their land and claiming their inheritance in a way that's not a one-off. It would be so easy to get overwhelmed by everything. It feels like we are moving from one crisis to the next, one disaster to the next, one storm to the next. Margaret Mead is one of my favorite persons. Never doubt that a small group of committed people can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that has. We are Belizeans. We're people of the reef. We're so proud to be Belizeans. We're so proud of these resources. We just have to, work together. And that's when, as we say in Belize, we're not just pretty, we pretty bad. That's when we prettiest, right? That when it counts, we rally together and we show up every time and we keep pushing for the Belize we need because we deserve it, not for anybody else's benefit, but we deserve it.